Loops is a very important part of programming. And in JavaScript, loop is also important to help programmers run tedious tasks in a very easy and hassle-free manner. So for instance, say we have a lot of tasks to run or a lot of data to take from a variable or from a database or from an array. Would we write each data defining it to a variable, or would we just loop through all this data? Say there are 300 data or variables, so we need to define each variable one after the other. But with loop, we could just write 3 lines of code and we could loop through all the data. In variable, we would need to write 300 variable names. So you see, loops are very important in programming. So for this case, we will talk about the most commonly used loop, which is the for loop and the while loop. So to get started with the for loop, we use the for keyword and we write in our brackets and our curly braces. In here, our conditional logic goes here. And in here, we would have our result right here. So for instance, we would create a simple logic that loops through or iterates to 1 to 10 numbers, numeric numbers. Okay, so to do that, what did we need to do such attacks? First, we need a counter. Okay, and second, we need to reset the counter. Third, we need a condition to compare the loop or iteration. We also need to increase the counter. And in our results, we need to call the counter name. So this is what we need to create an iteration. Basically, this is a common use case of creating an iteration with a loop. So to get started easily, I will just come right here and I'm going to define a variable called var. You know how to do this by now, called I. Usually in programming, we use I for counter, or we could use the word counter, but it's a variable name, so you could use anything you want to. So I'm going to say var I, which is the counter in this case. So we said we need a counter, we need to reset the counter. So in this case, we'll set the counter to 0. So variable I is equals to 0. And we need a condition to compare. So we want to say for I is equal to 0 and I is lesser than 10. Then say increase the counter. So by now we should know about the I++ incremental, and would increase the counter right here. So for our result, we would want it to print or to console.log for us I. So if I save that and load this on my browser, I should be able to see my loop running through. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 9. So how does this loop work? I define my variable var I and I reset it. So I reset the counter, then I give it a condition. So this loop is going to run round and round and round and round and round till this condition proves false. So for instance, if it checks for variable I is equals to 0, it's going to increment and would have 1. It goes again, increment and would have 2. And it's going to check, is 2 lesser than 10? No. We're going to check again, 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 till we have 9, or till we have 10, which is lesser than 10, which in that case, this condition will prove false. So in this case, if it goes 1 is lesser than 10, it proves true, 2 is lesser than 10, Goes through 3 is lesser than 10, 4 is lesser than 10, till we have 10 is greater than 10 is lesser than 10. So if we wanted to, now if we check in this loop, we would see that 10 itself is not included. And it's also because of the incremental, the operator we're using. So if we want this to be a different case, we could say equal to or lesser than or equal to 10. I think it's the other way. Okay, lesser than or equals to 10, and we have 10 right here. So either ways you find comfortable for you, it's fine. Okay, so still on the for loop. For instance, say we have we want that when it reaches a certain condition, we want our loop to stop running. How do we do this? For instance, this is an iteration from a number from 0 to 10. Say when we reach 3, or when it finds 3 for us, we want it to stop the iteration. We do that by writing the if conditional logic or boolean statement inside our for loop. So for now, I will take this off and I'll write my if. You should know how this goes by now. And next, I'm going to write my condition. So say if I, which is our counter, which was defined in this case, is equal to 3, then we want it to break. But after the break, we want it to still console.log our I. So let's see how this goes on our browser. So on our browser, we have 012, and it failed to load 3 because we said it should break. So there is break and there is also continue. If we want it to continue, when it reaches 3, we use the word continue instead. And we would see that this loop is going to run without including 3 in it. 3 would not be found in the loop. So say for instance, we still want to attribute other values or other things. Instead of the continue or instead of skipping it, we could just console.log for us, hello, number 3 is missing. So if I reload this on my browser, we'd see that it won't work until I remove the continue place. So if I reload this on my browser, I should see the hello, we have 3. Hello number 3 is missing. Definitely 3 is still loading here because we didn't break it. So after our console.log statement, we definitely need to break it. But I believe we get the point with the for loop right now. We could continue, we could break, we could write a lot of conditional logical statements as much as we want. So next, I will introduce us to the while loop. The while loop looks almost like the for loop, and in fact, it is universally used in almost all programming language, just as it would be explained. Okay, so the while loop. To start with, I will just comment all of this thing out and write my while loop. To start with the while loop, we need the while keyword, just like so. And we are going to say while. While for the while loop, we would have a condition, or would have a counter first. And after a counter, we would have the condition. And after the condition, we'll have the result. And after the result, we'll need to increment the counter. Now, in this case, we would be using this. So in your case of use, it could be quite different, but I just want you to get the whole understanding. We're going to do something almost similar to what we did for the for loop, but it's all about understanding this right now. This is for illustration purpose, okay? So you don't expect the while loop to always remain the same, to have the counter, the condition, the result, and the increment the counter, but just for us to get the understanding of it. For the while loop, I will define my variable just outside the loop by saying var I, which is my counter in this case, var I, is equal to 0. And next, I'm going to use an array in this case to do my loop. Please bear with me if you don't understand much about arrays. You could check that up in the previous or next video. So I'm going to say this time the array should be named names and should have this set of value. So the first one I would give is Ellen. The second one should be Emmanuel, which is my name, and another one should be Oziri, and another one should be Hassan, and Giovanni, and we should also have Ricardo. Okay, I think this is enough for now. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to say why we have all of this array or all of this object in the array. We want to loop through all of them singly so we could output each name one by one without having to write them. So in this case, we are going to say, firstly, we need to get the length of this array. So how do we get the length of this array? If I console.log names.length, I am going to get the length of this array. So if I reload this on my browser, sorry, I have an error right there. I'll just need to take this out so I know where the problem is from. Okay, so if I reload this, I would have 6. It means that we have 6 data in this array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my condition, if it gets this right, would be yi, which is 0, is lesser than 6, which is the 6th item in the array. We want it to console.log for us name, the all names. So we'll do that right away. So yi is lesser than names, or is lesser than names.length. We want it to console.log names, and this time as an index of I, our counter. So I would remove this guy so we'd see well. And lastly, we would need to increment the counter. So we increment the counter by saying I++, so that it moves to the next stage. It doesn't just stop. So if I reload this on my browser, I would have all the names in the array outputted in my console. So this is Emmanuel, this is Ellen, Emmanuel, Siri, and everything. Now say I had a new name. Called John, which is also Giovanni. It is going to add just automatically right there. Okay, so this way we're able to loop through all this data. Now imagine even if all of this data, I just want to show you the power of loop. So I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. So if there's no error, now just imagine the whole bunch of data we have right here. This could be thousands of data. We loop, all we just have to do is to write this line of code while our while line of code, and we're good to go. Okay, so I hope we learned a thing or two from this video. Thanks for watching.